I had a great conversation today with a couple of friends of mine. Well, I had many conversations all day, so let me recap just a few of those. This is Heavy Breathing just before midnight, and you are listening to Sandi Maki. I started the day today with something that I absolutely love to do, which is learn. Learn interesting things about topics that I am very intrigued by. I attended a DISC personality profiles class so that I could learn more from the presenter on the way that he taught about personalities and assimilate some more information into my knowledge base about each of the personality types. If you haven't started looking into personality studies yet, I would highly recommend that you do. I take them every chance that I get from every type of presenter that there is. I look online, I read books, I read blogs, I take things in person, I take different assessments. It's all about getting as much information as possible so that I can learn communication skills and ways of analyzing situations and things that are happening so that I can help make everybody's experience, including my own, the absolute best that it can be. So that was the first couple hours of my morning today, and it was absolutely fantastic. We did need to share at the end of the class something that we had learned or a big aha. And I didn't necessarily have a big aha because I've spent so much time looking into personalities myself. I do know that I gained a lot of new insights and a lot of new ways of looking at different personality types. And there's no one personality type that's better or worse than another one. There are certain styles that are easy to spot and certain behavior patterns that are easy to spot in each of the styles. And each one is so critical in putting together any type of initiative or team effort or business plan or interaction. They are just all so incredible. I think I've mentioned before, but I'll say it again. If you have a dynamic family or a dynamic business situation where you have many different personality types, this is one of the biggest, greatest things that you can do for yourself, for your family, for your children. Not only should you learn about the personalities, but everybody else that you're around should learn the personalities also. It's a way that we can separate ourselves from our ego and our responses to things when we depersonalize it and we figure out that this is the way that somebody is reacting because of the way that they interpret information and the way that they see the world. Then we know, number one, how to put new information in front of them in the best way for their personality type. And number two, we don't take it personally. I had an example of this just last week. My son, who's in middle school, had an appointment after school, and I needed to get back to pick him up. I happened to be on the freeway at just about the time that school was getting out, and I wasn't very far away, maybe about 10 minutes, but I was on the freeway, and you never know with traffic. So I had called him, and luckily, yes, he does carry a cell phone, and he had it on and he was able to pick it up. And my message to him, I had texted him and then I also called, and my message was, don't get on the bus. Just find a bench and sit and wait for me in front of the school. Or if you need to, just go back into the office and just wait for me to get there. I'll be 10 minutes. Well, he couldn't do this. It was outside of his comfort zone to not get on the bus. And luckily for me, I've had enough experience with personality tests, and I do know my son's personality type. And I knew that my request, which I know that my daughter could have handled, I knew that my request was a little bit too much for him because he likes patterns and he likes knowing what's coming next. So when the school day is over, he likes knowing that he's getting on the bus. So if I try to pattern interrupt that, and have him go outside of what the normal routine is, he's really not comfortable with that. So at that point, I had a choice. I could have insisted that he not get on the bus, and he could have waited outside of the school for me for 10 minutes, and it probably would have been a really long and miserable 10 minutes for him, and more than likely for me feeling guilty or feeling bad that I had asked him to do this knowing just how uncomfortable it would make him. So instead, he got on the bus and he got dropped off at home, translating into us being a few minutes late for our appointment. But at that point, that was okay. I knew that I was doing what was in his best interest, serving his personality style. If I had prepped him ahead of time, if we had a different type of plan, things may have been able to go differently. But as it wasn't something that was so critical that I needed to have him be in that uncomfortable moment. Think about those uncomfortable moments that maybe are routine to you, but not to someone else. So much of what we learn and what we assimilate comes from childhood. And a lot of things, experts, whoever the experts are who write books and studies about this, experts would say that a lot of our triggers are put into place by the time we're age 7 or 8. It doesn't stop there though. Right through our teenage years and then into our adult years, there are still things that, depending on the emotion that is elicited from a set of circumstances, we are still being imprinted and we still have those patterns being created in us. So be aware of those patterns, and as a parent, I implore you, pay attention to what you're doing and what you're saying. I'm not perfect. I don't know of anyone who is perfect. I know that I do try to make a conscious effort in guiding my children appropriately and in honoring their personalities and knowing where their comfort zone is, where I should push, and then where it's really okay to let things go. So that was one of those cases. So from there, I spent the afternoon with a very good friend of mine and enjoyed some time together. And then later on, I had been checking some email, and for some reason today, it seems like I was getting all of these emails that I had to handle, and they weren't the fun kind of emails. Maybe it was something that hadn't gone quite the way that somebody else had expected, and so they were sending over a note of, where maybe the discrepancy was. Or, maybe somebody had been offended by something that had happened. And again, this feedback loop was telling me some things, and I needed to formulate some responses, or in some cases, just read them and see what was going on. I had put a post on Facebook about a month and a half ago, and the question that I posed on Facebook was, in the thank you economy, when dealing with difficult people and difficult customers, what is the best way to, extract yourself from a situation? Or if you just know that you're never going to make a customer happy, what's the best way to handle something like that? Well, this is similar to what I had going on today. I had gotten an email, and it was, it's not even a client. It's actually somebody that we were dealing with doing a proposal, and we could tell that it's not a culture fit. The energy of the person wanting to get a proposal was different than the energy of our company and what our company can provide. So then we found ourselves in a rock and a hard place. Well, do we just outright tell them that we're not interested in working with them and have them ask why and say, well, we're just not feeling it, the energy's not right? Or, is there any chance that maybe it's just not right yet because maybe we haven't had enough time to get to know each other or communicate to find out if it's really a fit? Or, well, maybe it's just not a fit and we could do what we do and maybe encourage the other party to opt out. So, there's a little bit of this rock and a hard place and what to do. Ultimately, we opted for option C, if you were following. So we did put together a proposal, but we structured it in such a way, knowing what we did about this situation, that it probably wasn't going to be the best option, most popular, and therefore this potential customer, would self-select out and really not be interested in what we had to offer. So even though that was our intended outcome, still getting the email, which outlined, several different scenarios and why this was a problem, it didn't really feel very good. And in reading the email, my ego started to get a little bit defensive. because even though we knew it wasn't the right energy fit, and there's no amount of convincing at this point or even at that point that would tell me otherwise, it's not a matter of communication in this case. It's just that sometimes somebody is not right to work with you and you are not right to work with someone. So we need to honor that. Yet I think sometimes it's a little bit hard to figure out exactly how to do it. So our strategy of sending it over resulted in them getting something and then obviously maybe having some concerns over it. And instead of just saying thanks but no thanks, this particular situation warranted an email outlining all kinds of complaints. Like I said, my ego flared up just a little bit there. I have enough experience with the personality studies that I know that my default personality response to something like this would be to get an email open, draft a response, use a lot of exclamation points, although I don't use upper caps or all caps because that's just like yelling. So it's not something that I would be yelling, but I do tend, even in my normal happy-go-lucky day-to-day correspondence, I tend to use a lot of exclamation points. So I could have gone point by point in this email and put together a response that outlined my counterpoint to all of these other points. But really, what would be the point? I don't want to work with this client anyway, and it's not a fit with the organization. So what does it serve for me to put any of that together? It really doesn't serve anything. I was having a conversation with a couple friends of mine, and we were discussing this particular situation. And one of them did bring up the fact, well, isn't your ego just getting in the way at that point? And I said, sure it is, but sometimes it is just fun to step aside and watch what your ego has to say. It is. If you're anything like me, I can only imagine that a few of you may be. Sometimes when, something gets you riled up, it's a little bit fun just to let it go. Within reason, of course, to see what happens. Well, in any event, there's also another fun thing that says if it's a good idea today and it's still a good idea tomorrow, perhaps after you've slept on it and put a little bit of distance between you and the emotional reaction that you had, if it's still a good idea, then I would say move forward with plan A. Otherwise, be open to some new possibilities about what else could be a possible outcome for the situation. So ultimately, I did not open my email. I did not go point by point and send a response. But what is going to happen is an email will be opened and it will say, thank you so much for the feedback and we wish you all the best as you continue your selection process or whatever ultimately gets put in there. So while it's fun sometimes to step aside and watch what the ego will do, and occasionally it is, a nice, I won't say nice response, but sometimes an energetic email or conversation requires a little bit of energy mirrored back, but sometimes it doesn't. So knowing when to be the judge of those times is a very interesting thing. And also being able to step back and outside of the situation and look at how you receive information and how your pain bodies are triggered. Pain bodies, now that's another topic that we'll get into even more. Anyone who has read Eckhart Tolle or A New Earth would be fairly familiar with the pain body. Basically, that's an emotional charge that gets you riled up. Everybody has a little bit different trigger for their pain bodies. What will affect one person may not affect someone else. So if you learn where your pain bodies are and when you get some of the emotional responses that you do, it can help you to become more objective when you recognize where those are. So me getting an email in my inbox that's not entirely pleasant does tend to trigger those for me. My choleric personality would want to address it right here, right now, and fire something back over. But sometimes what it needs is a little bit of time, a little bit of contemplation, and then a big smile and a thank you at the end of the day. So did I learn a lot of things today? I absolutely did. Did I gain some new perspective and appreciation on personalities? I absolutely did. Did I have a moment with my ego where I thought of all of the possible responses that I could come up with in this particular situation? Absolutely. Did I have a little fun with that? You bet I did. Was it a little bit painful? Absolutely. The end of the day, it's still back to heavy breathing just before midnight and observing some of our behaviors. So until next time, when your ego gets engaged, I suggest you breathe, sleep on it, get a second opinion, and proceed from there, owning whichever direction you decide to go in.